What's up, Military Millionaires? I am here with the Ryan Dossie today, and we've been trying to link up for a little while, but there was like this whole pandemic thing,
Got in the
and
way.
then life and whatever. But we finally were able to link up, so he came up here with his awesome video guy, Mike, to do a video, and obviously we're flipping the script now, so I get to talk to him. And so this is really cool because, well, so Ryan is Dependa, which I'm going to say that even though I don't know.
Did you call me a
I
dependent?
totally called you a Dependa.
Yeah, you're not wrong. She technically bought our house.
I know.
That way we didn't have to get into my money.
So Ryan is an extremely successful real estate investor. So the phrase "dependa" is totally not doing him
stings a
justice.
little.
But I couldn't resist it because it's just funny.
That's great.
So his wife is active duty, right? And they're in San Diego here, and then they're going to be moving to Pensacola in the near future. But if you don't know who Ryan is, like they have built, I guess empire is a good word, like a very successful platform through wholesaling and flipping and buying and holding, long distance, and everything he does is applicable to service members, right? Like they're all strategies you can use
Oh, absolutely.
from all over the place. And so this is exciting. So I'm gonna let him tell a little bit about his story, where he got started, and then we'll roll from there.
Cool.
I'll just
Is that my
I guess I'll just
or do you want to ask questions?
Ryan,
or?
tell us a little bit about just where you got started in real estate for starters.
Okay, cool. So I think like a lot of people, I found real estate because I wasn't happy with my life. So I was 19, 20. I was selling car warranties.
Oh, exciting.
It's shameful. Yeah, I sold a nun once.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. So it was this like high pressure, hardcore one call close environment. I didn't technically graduate high school, so I started doing that when I was actually 17. And my first month, I made like tons of money. I want to say my post-tax take-home was like $10,000, $15,000, something like that. And I was 17, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward, I got married at 20, and every year it got harder and harder to make the same amount of money. So, my first year, it was kind of like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go eat? Let's go on a vacation, yada, yada. The last year, it was like, what's a budget? Like, we're spending more money than we're making. We're going into credit card debt. My last year as a W-2 employee, I think we did right at like $23,000 pre-tax, and I was the only income. So I kind of ended up in this spot. I won't swear to mess up your
Oh no,
your
you can
YouTube or
swear all
anything,
you
but,
want on this one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
This is the Potty
Fuck.
Mouth channel. But I got into a place that my phone would ring at work, and I would like pick it up and be like, "F this," and thank you for calling so and so, and then repeat, right? And it was about that time that a coworker of mine, like everybody else, was like, "Hey, you should read Rich Dad Poor Dad." So we didn't really have money growing up. My dad was an entrepreneur, always worked like crazy long days, 15, 16-hour days. And I was doing stuff like cutting grass and shoveling for snow for extra cash to be able to have like my spending money, right? And so it's kind of what I grew up around, but I never really grasped this concept of like leveraging money in other people's time to turn a profit. So it was kind of this, I went from like, I used to look at everything from monthly payments, like, okay, well, can I afford this? Can I afford that? To looking more at like opportunity cost. And if I invest this into marketing, what's the return that I can get out of the backside? So I started out wholesaling houses. My first month, I split a 3,000 piece yellow letter campaign with a buddy of mine, coworker. I couldn't afford my half, so it went on a credit card I couldn't pay off. This is one of those like, don't do as I did, but
But it worked.
But it worked, right? My wife and I were actually talking the other day. American Express, my like rep called me and was like, "Hey, just want to let you know, you guys have charged and paid off $1 million so far this year." And I was like, "That is insane."
Wow.
But early on, that was like our startup capital was like, okay. And there was months we hated them when they wanted to get paid back, right? But that first month charged $1,500 of that $3,000 campaign. About 45 days later, we got a deal under contract, wholesaled it. And after reimbursing our marketing costs, there was right at about $10,000 left. So I was looking at a check that was what I would make in 6 months off of like 4 hours worth of time. And that was, I was hooked from then on out. So that was kind of my initial like start.
I don't blame you for being hooked. So and that's the thing. I think
Remember my dad being like, "Is this legal?"
Yeah.
like is this? You're not like flipping bricks of cocaine. Like this is on the up and up, right? And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's fine."
Totally. The house might have had some coke in the walls, but it wasn't disclosed, so we're good. Man, that's cool, right? Because that shows that you don't need a ton of money to get into real estate, right? And I think people get wrapped around the but I don't have capital. Well, you don't have to go and find a 300 unit apartment complex for your first deal. You don't have to buy a 20% down rental property. Like, you can find I bird dogged a deal to a guy that I wanted to get to know in Hawaii. I was like, I didn't wholesale it, but I was just like, hey, you got a finder's fee, like hook it up, whatever, here's the deal. And then I just walked around with him for free for 3 months, it was less than that, but whatever amount of time it took to flip it. And I got to learn, I got to help design, I got to do whatever. And like, I learned more from doing that than I did anything else. And that didn't cost me a penny. That was from the dreaded driving for dollars and, some phone calls, some time, some sweat equity. But I made, a little bit of money off it, nothing crazy, but I learned a ton, and then I've been able to use that to make more money.
So I'm a big fan of reverse wholesaling. So typical wholesaling is you go find a house and like, Dave, I'm going to buy your house for cash. I hope I can find somebody that can pay Dave cash, right? Reverse wholesaling is like, I've got a guy who I know is looking for a house like yours, and I'm going to meet with you. I'm going to build rapport. I'm going to get to know you, and then I'm going to go back to my investor and say, what would you pay for this house? And any dollar I can get it below that is just profit for me. So that was really like, I've got a video on my channel on it, but that was where I went from like nothing in the bank to making $100,000 in a year after paying for my expenses. There was a local investor that I would literally go on appointments, take pictures, send them back to him, and he'd be like, yeah, I'll take this one for this much. And I would just try to beat in margin. But it's one of those things, like you mentioned, you don't have money. Okay, cool. Go drive for dollars, or go door knock. Or if you have a little bit of money, do a direct mail campaign or do some cold calling or something. But if you can find those opportunities, I think that was the biggest like mental hurdle for me to flip, was you don't have to have money to make money. If you can find opportunities that make money, you'll make a fortune. I remember one of my mentors who's not even in real estate telling me, he's like, you realize with your skill set, you should never be poor. Because if you can find opportunities for people to make money, you're creating enough value there that's worth whatever you can get for it. So I remember early on, I'd do a wholesale deal and I'd make $3,000. Like, wow. And I remember I called a buddy of mine who was constantly posting these $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 deals. And I was like, Frank, how do you do it? And you said I'm allowed to swear, so I'm gonna give Frank's advice. He was like, you're a little bitch. And I was like, I was like, come again, right? And he was like, the reason you only make $3,000 to $5,000 a deal is you think that's all your time is worth. If you start to take this seriously and you value your time at $20,000, you'll have $20,000 deals. And in the span of 6 months, we went from our average profit being like $3,000 to $5,000 a deal to over 15.
Yeah.
We didn't change anything. We just got better at negotiating and holding our profit margins.
That's awesome. And that's really good advice. So I have struggled with that like mindset for a little while. I read this book recently called like The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind or whatever, but like the idea of like your wealth being like a thermostat or whatever, like people talk about, where it's like people will self-limit. They won't think, they don't know, and I remember catching myself at one point, someone said someone made like $500,000 and I was like, that's so crazy. And then like a rich friend of mine was like, no, it's not crazy. Like the moment you realize that it's not crazy to make $500,000 is the moment you might be able to make $500,000. I was like,
you and I have a friend, mutual friend, Greg Helbeck.
Yeah. And
Greg's got a quote of what you look for is what you're going to find. So if you're looking for $10,000 profit opportunities, you're going to find them. Wouldn't you rather be looking for $100,000 profit opportunities? And I've found that to be so true.
That's really cool. Yeah, I like that. Greg's such a cool dude. I'm a fan for sure. So if you watch this, Greg, you better hit that like button.
That's right. Subscribe.
Okay, so, and then you went from wholesaling, you grew into flipping and buy and hold. What was, like, can you just kind of slope, like the 30,000 foot view, like what was that kind of transition over the last 3 years? Like, you've become extremely successful. So like, where are you today from that first deal?
Yeah, so I think my first deal was probably back in like 2015.
Yeah.
So 2016 was awful. Like, that was rock bottom for me. It was just, I wasn't making any money. I wasn't making enough money on deals to justify paying for marketing. I was doing what my dad did. I was working 16, 17-hour days. My wife would go to bed alone. Our marriage sucked. We'd been married for like 2 years. I remember a business coach actually asked me if I wanted to get divorced. And I was like, whoa, I'm like 12 years old. We don't ask that question. And but it was like a really good wake-up call for me of like, well, if I don't get some stuff figured out, that's where I'm headed. So I actually, and this is the only time I will ever endorse Grant Cardone, I read his book 10X.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, if I can do 5 or 6 deals in a year, I actually didn't have the cojones to 10X. So I'd done 6 deals. I was like, there's no way I can do 60 next year.
Yeah.
But if I can do 50 deals next year, it would change my life.
Yeah.
And so we reverse engineered the numbers of how much marketing did I need to send out to get a deal on average. So at the time it was like 2,000 pieces of mail. Long story short, back to the math, and I needed to do about a deal a week. And I started dropping $2,500 a week on marketing. And when I say dropping, American Expressing, $2,500 a week. And there was times
This episode sponsored by Amex Platinum.
That's right. That's right. It's actually the business gold card.
Oh, I'm
but,
sorry.
but I mean, there was times that they called me and they were like, "What are you doing? Like, this doesn't make sense." But what happened was we got this this economy of scale started to work for us, where we couldn't keep marketing at that level because we were doing too many deals. And then on top of that, our profit per deal went up. So it went from this, like, I think January of 2017, I did 9 deals when the previous year I'd done 6.
Yeah.
And you talk about that, you're limiting yourself. That's totally what it was. It was this, like, you know, well, I do a deal every other month, not, well, I can do 3 or 4 a week, or I can do 10 a month, right? So that was 2017. The tail end of, in 2015, 16, 17, I'd bought a couple properties with like a 25% down with a business partner that I actually ended up selling to him in 2016 when I went full time. So I kind of burned the ship, so to speak, in 2016. I'm amazed we didn't go broke. I made dumb decisions still. You know, our mortgage was $550, so I went and got a $600 a month Range Rover payment.
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
we needed one.
Yeah.
But, you know, so that was kind of 2016. 17, we started buying rentals again. And then a guy named Bill Sirius, who's my business partner now, kind of showed me the financial side of, you know, I'm wholesaling a deal to make $10,000, but if I keep that deal, the depreciation, the tax benefits, the equity pay down, the appreciation, and the cash flow, and it was like, I think I'm on the wrong side of this gig. So we pretty much went all in on buy and hold. 2018 and 19, we ended up buying right at 150 units in 2 years. And that was a range from, half of it was like single family, and then duplex, triplex, and quads. I think our biggest is a 12 or 13 unit. And we bought a couple packages, like we bought a 7 and a 10 unit that came together. So that was kind of where we were at. And then this year we've really focused on like fixing all the issues in the portfolio. So making sure things are remodeled like they are. We have properties we bought that in hindsight we shouldn't have bought, that we've now sold, because if it's not making money, why have it? And we're really working on kind of stabilizing to kind of go back on another growth spree, but doing it in a way, I would say we grew a little bit irresponsibly, if I'm being totally blunt. You really can't go from nothing to $9 million in real estate without some hiccups. But we're now kind of getting back to the point of starting to buy and hold more deals. So,
yeah. Well, and ultimately, like with real estate, right? You're going to lose money on some deals. You're going to, you know, there's always going to be that 1 or 2 that go bad, but the game is to win on more than you lose.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you're not the first person. I know several people who said that they scaled too fast, or I mean, I got in trouble. We talked earlier about my like 40 unit that, you know, it could have been a great deal. It had potential, whatever, but I didn't really have any business buying that property at that point. But I had set a big goal and it seemed to meet some of those metrics.
You gotta hit the goal, man.
And I hit the goal, but I, didn't hold on to the property because granted there were things that came up later that made it worse than it seemed, but it ended up not being the right thing. And so I think at some point, it's a better problem to overscale and have to thin the herd a little bit than the alternative for sure. But it's cool to hear you say that because I think people forget about, they build a big portfolio and they sometimes they forget about the fact that there are deals that in there that are holding them back.
Yep.
So that's
cool.
No,
I mean we've gone through and ran like a T12 and looked at like, okay, what's this doing? What should it be doing? We had a group home we bought that was 4 units, and it's like, I don't know if they're running a laundromat out of it when we're not there, but it was like our utility costs made the thing a loser, and they were way higher than they should have been. Yeah. So it's like we went back to the group home and we're like, hey, you guys are going to start to pay for utilities or we're going to kick all your people out. Like kind of pick one, right? But my kind of slogan is we keep the best, we wholesale or flip the rest. But what we've been doing lately is really focusing on maximizing every opportunity we have. So like we put out an offer earlier this week on like $1.2 million worth of rentals that we're looking at picking up for like 800.
Nice.
So yeah, like we're doing deals like that, and then we're doing other stuff. Like I got a random lead in Louisville, Kentucky, on a $500,000 house on a golf course that we're lease optioning, where we're gonna take over the guy's mortgage for like $1,200. We're giving him $5,000 down, and we're gonna turn around and list it for $400. But looking at like how can we pull whatever our business needs out of this, and I think that's the other thing that I'm a little different with than a lot of buy and hold investors. I look at my return on ad spend. So if I drop $10,000, if I can pull in, what investor do you know, non-real estate, that if they could invest $10,000 and get $15,000 back 30 days later, wouldn't do that deal?
Yeah.
So that's really how I look at our transactional business of, if I can spend, $20,000 and pull in 50, great. Often it's a significantly higher return than that. So we kind of look at our short-term, wholesaling, flipping business as like, that's our now money. That's our salary for our guys. That's the take home. That's the bonuses. Whereas the buy and hold portfolio, I view more like my retirement plan. So I'm not your guy who has, 10 units and like, well, if I cash flow $100 a month, I'm financially free. I would rather be like, hey, I need to do 1 deal a month, but I'm gonna do 10 a month instead.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I think, look at it in a way that's different than how a lot of people do it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of similar in the fact that it's like, if I just hold my rentals forever, like, then I'm gonna be good. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I won't have any complaints.
Yeah, like, people get, it's kind of funny to me to see like the people who like refinance a million times or, like pull every bit of equity out of everything. And I'm like, I just plan on holding that house right there.
Let that sucker pay off.
In 15 years, that thing's going to pay me an extra $1,500 a month.
Yep.
I mean, it's still paying me, but, so I'm a fan for sure. All right, so I am a Nick the New Guy real estate investor, and I want to find my first deal.
Okay.
What's
your
2-minute, because I know finding deals is your jam, and I want to talk about your platforms like Call Porter and I'm drawing a blank on your direct mail. There we go, Ballpoint. But I want to talk about that as well. But I'm just curious, like, what would be your first go-to like today?
So my typical, anytime I have somebody like, I need a deal, I'll have them go like more niche list.
I'm needy.
Yeah.
Super needy.
Or typically it's like, I don't know how I'm going to pay bills in 45 days. Yeah. My number one recommendation is typically, you can either get it from PropStream or the MLS, is expired listings with equity. So these are people that tried to sell, it didn't sell, and they still have it, but they can afford to sell at the price point we'd want as an investor. And I'll go back 5+ years. I'm sure you've seen this on the MLS, but somebody will list a property, they'll pull it off, and then it'll sell for pennies on the dollar a month or two later. And I kind of saw that trend and was like, what's happening there? So we're now part of that trend. So that's one of the lists we market to every single month. And my favorite part with negotiating on these, whether you direct mail them, cold call them, I'm a big direct mail person. It's because I don't like confrontation. So if I cold call, I get yelled at.
Yeah.
On direct mail, we still get yelled at, but Call Porter gets yelled at for me. But my favorite part in negotiation with those is they hit you with the, well, I'm just going to list it, and we'll just how'd that work out for you last time? Right? It's like we've got that trump card in the back pocket of their typical exit already didn't work, and we know that.
That's cool.
So I like that list a lot. And it's typically pretty small.
Yeah.
Normally in a metro, you're a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 people. And that's, I think, gives you something that you can play with that's targeted, but still small enough that it makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so you mentioned Call Porter.
Yep. So Call Porter is our call center.
You like how like awesome and specific that question was? It just like you
I mean, I
mentioned Call
figured you
Porter.
wanted more details on it.
Tell me more.
So we have like 15, 20 full-time employees in St. Louis, Missouri. They talk just like me. So they don't sound Southern. They don't sound East Coast or anything like that. Some people on the East Coast think I sound like a hick. So, maybe. But they'll take inbound calls, and they work primarily just with real estate investors. So this isn't like a Pat Live or something. They're taking calls for investors and realtors, and that's it. So they're asking questions like motivation, equity, condition, and they'll actually book appointments for my acquisitions managers to just go meet with sellers and close the deals. So it makes it very like that kind of front inbound piece is taken care of for us, which is why like the past 2 weeks I've dropped 18,000 pieces of mail. I'm not worried about those phone calls because my staff doesn't have to take them. My other staff does, but that's what they do for a living.
Yeah, but if I was just using Call Porter and I wasn't like the owner or whatever, like it's not my staff. It's just a service that's there to help me out. So, which is cool because I don't like fielding those initial phone calls. I don't know that I would say it's not worth my time because it totally is worth my time in a way, but it's...
I think there's, even with like people who have acquisitions managers, I've got buddies that have staff and they're like, well, they can take their own calls. And my argument to that is always a closer's highest and best usage of their time is not talking to unqualified prospects. I want them to focus on, so all across the country on Call Porter, it goes a third, a third, a third. 33% of calls in our experience are take me off your list, never mail me again. A third are come out and make me an offer. And a third are I have some more questions before I let you come out, or I've got to check with my tenants, or I don't live in town, whatever. Something that needs a little bit more work. So if I can even just cut 66% of the inbound calls that person has to deal with, great. But on top of that, they don't have this thing where they're afraid to pick up their phone because they don't want to get yelled at by somebody who's upset that they got a letter.
Yeah.
Which, if you've ever done any marketing of any kind, that's part of it.
Yeah, if you've ever been a recruiter too, it's basically like you're doing that to yourself. So if you've been a recruiter, you know how miserable that is, and that's why I'm not a huge fan of receiving those phone calls.
Yep.
In fact, we were talking earlier, I kind of joked about it, like I will put my email address and then my phone number underneath and be like, feel free to email or call, and like
Please
a
email.
hope that it's like, I want to sell you my home. And I was doing that for a little while, and I was like, this doesn't work. So obviously I went back to phone number, but it's even more important for me because I'm not even allowed to have my cell phone during the day. I work, like I work in a secret vault. So it's like, let me just set my phone out here and hope that nobody calls until I get off work because I won't be able to answer the call. So that's actually really cool. And I had looked into that and I was like, why didn't I know about this before? Because there's a very good chance that we'll be talking a little bit about how to get me set up for that as I throw another big marketing campaign out. But so we talked Call Porter. Ballpoint, that's your direct marketing company.
Yep.
What makes it unique?
Everything.
Okay, perfect.
So the biggest piece that makes it unique is our letters aren't printed out of like an HP or an inkjet or a LaserJet or something like that. They're written by machines that hold a pen and handwrite in cursive.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it smears, it smudges. It's pretty well indistinguishable from if like I sat down and wrote you a letter. For all of our service members, if you got like the signed letter from the president when you joined or whatever, that was done on one of our machines.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so that would work because, I mean, everybody's all about making it look authentic.
Yep.
And that, I mean, it's funny because I do like the cursive, like blue ink out of a printer, and it's not the same.
So the neat thing with how our equipment works is it varies the horizontal, the vertical, and the spacing between letters. So if you use just like a font, and there's some fonts that can kind of imitate that. Even if you use a font to imitate that, okay, cool. You pick mine up and you can see where the pen dug into the pages, and where the ink ran thick. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had things like school teachers call us and be like, I'm not selling my house, but your handwriting's beautiful. And it's like, oh, why, thank you. We did get called one time. I was signing a contract, and the person goes, your signature looks a little different there. I was like, so they do that, and then we'll also do custom designs for the market as an option. We have some postcards that stand out that are a little bit cheaper. But the big thing that we believe in is ethical marketing. So we're not doing the BS of like, my wife and I want to buy a house if you're looking to sell, or this is your final notice of this cash offer that's expiring. Our approach is very, very like Dear John and Sarah. What are your plans for 123 Main Street? We've prepared you a cash offer. Give us a call at phone number. Let's chat if you're interested in selling. So it's very kind of like how to win friends and influence people based.
Cool. And then you guys have templates that people can use, so that's huge too, because I know a lot of people don't ever know. I get asked all the time what I put on letters, and
I mean, literally what I just shared is like one of our templates.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
So
there you are.
And I legitimately hand wrote 120 letters once for my first marketing campaign ever, because I was cheap.
Yeah.
And that was the best response rate I ever got, and I never did it again because of how miserable it is. So having a system.
Hit that carpal tunnel.
Yeah. So having a system, it's funny. So I have a buddy, Keith. If you're watching this, I love you. He's actually a very successful wholesaler right now. He's done very well. But when he first started, he literally brought like 5 or 6 of his friends who were Marines into his house and was like, I'm buying pizza, I'm buying beer, we've got 1,000 letters to push out. And he made like a weekend of it. He like paid like $10 an hour plus like pizza and beer, and they hand wrote. And it was great until he tried to scale, and he was just like, nobody wants to come work. Like it was just
nobody
work,
takes Keith's calls anymore.
Like it just did not work to write those letters. So that's really cool. I actually didn't even know that was a thing, to have like a machine that can have better handwriting than me. So that's really cool. I'm glad I asked that question. Awesome. So Call Porter, Ballpoint, you got a lot of other stuff going on. What's next?
Like personally, like what do I want? So I think for a lot of people, real estate is like their thing. Like that's what they want out of life. I stumbled into it when I was broke. So it's really given me the freedom to kind of sit back and assess, like, what do I want? What do I enjoy? What do I not enjoy? And you could tell by the companies we've started, I enjoy marketing. I enjoy systems. I enjoy scaling. Ultimately, what I enjoy is building businesses. So what we're focusing on now, why you and I are here, why we've got Mike behind the cameras here, is we're working on building my personal brand. And my long-term plan is to kind of do what Tim Ferriss does, which is consult in startups in exchange for a portion of equity. I'm very good at taking businesses from almost nothing to 7+ figures a year.
I like it.
So that's really kind of like my zone of genius. That's the stuff that I enjoy. I have people who work for me that do like the houses, and that's what they enjoy. So I'll always be in real estate, but I want to move more into consulting with startups. So
that's cool. And obviously you've done good because people know who you are and your brand is cool. And like we've touched base a few different times. And so that's really cool. And I like the idea of focusing on like the startup and building businesses. Like I think there's a lot of opportunity there for you and for everyone else. And I think it just kind of goes to show like what's possible through real estate or through whatever, like when you put your mind to it, right? Like you tried a few different things, they didn't necessarily work out, and then you just kind of stumbled into real estate, and here you are, right? Like completely financially free if you want to be. Obviously,
other than the like, Navy telling my wife where we're gonna go live, but
not for much longer. Unless you realize, I don't know.
She's talking about making a career out of it. I kind of look at it like, she let me do my thing, so I'll let her do hers.
Okay, so she's thinking about making a career out of it just because she enjoys it?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's kind of like, it's day by day. I feel like everybody who's in, it's kind of like, well, how close am I to 20, right? Like, what's 17 more?
Yeah.
But she really does enjoy it. I think we're having our first kid in like a month. So I think...
Congrats.
Well, thank you. I'm terrified, but also super excited.
It'll be good.
It's this like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm super looking forward to it. Yeah. But I'm kind of the mindset of like, she let me do my stuff, so I want to give her the freedom and space to do her stuff. And fortunately, my stuff is set up that I can live anywhere I want. Yeah. I'm not upset about the dramatic drop in cost of living while starting a family. So that was kind of like, okay, this is fine.
And Pensacola is nice. Yeah. Like that's a good place to go.
Yeah, I'm excited. Our house is decent, and it seems like there's some really good communities and stuff there.
Yeah, you'll love it for sure. So that's cool. You got a lot going on. I have like 2 questions that I ask everybody.
Hit me.
So they're super complicated.
Okay.
The first is if you had like just a moment or two to talk to an 18-year-old and you give them advice for life or real estate.
Good question.
What would you tell them?
18-year-old, I would tell them that things will happen faster than they can possibly imagine and slower than they want at the same time.
Okay.
When I first started in business, I was like, you know, I'm in this because I'm a car guy. I need to have a Lambo in 2 months. That obviously didn't happen. We've learned in business that oftentimes things are never as good or as bad as they seem. So BiggerPockets, for instance, came out with the ability to send push notifications to users. Somehow they picked us as the first service to test this with. So we're like freaking out, right? Like they're gonna push notification, 1 million people, whatever it is, about our company. We got 1 sale. So it's just like, what on earth? But every year I've looked back, and when I first moved to California, I was like, can we really afford this? Like we're used to our Midwest budget, not this West Coast budget. And then, you know, after a couple months, it was like, well, this is like stupidly comfortable. You know, when I went full time in 2016, it was like, am I going to starve? And by 2017, it was like, well, no, we're making money. So I think it's great to have ambition. It's great to have goals, but just realize like you'll get there. I think I would even paraphrase of like, you'll go a lot further in a year than you could have imagined, but you're also not going to feel like you got very far in 6 months.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. All right. And then the second really difficult question is resource. Like if you had to name like one resource, a course, website, whatever for someone.
So I'm going to kind of answer that question with the 18-year-old in mind.
Okay.
And if I could give one resource and one recommendation, it would be to learn about marketing. Every entrepreneur I know needs more leads. Every business in existence wants more customers. And if you can figure out how to be like the rainmaker for those people, you'll go super far. An actual course, like in particular, there's a guy named Jabril Agoro who I bought his Facebook course. And like most people, I shelved it and didn't do anything with it. And I made the 3 payments of $399 because I couldn't afford the $1,000 up front or whatever. But I got to a point in my business where it was like, dang it, I need leads. And I was like, wait a minute, let me see if I still have that login. So I went through his course, and that was a dramatic turning point. I mean, I was talking to Michael yesterday, and at this point, we spent over $300,000 on Facebook ads.
Jeez.
Profitably. But learning how to do that and how to leverage that is huge. So, you know, don't go get like a BS fluff degree, which, I mean, somebody wants to go to school, cool. I didn't. But if you're going to go and get a degree, get it in something that's applicable. Get it in something that's, you know, it's great if it's a career you want to go into, but I like setting up businesses and income where I can make more based off the effectiveness of what I do. And marketing is infinitely scalable. There's people that spend $10 a day. There's people that spend $100,000 a day.
That's cool.
So if you can figure out how to get those people results, you can pretty much write yourself a blank check.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. Yeah, I'm a definite fan. I'll probably check out that course.
Yeah.
But I don't have any other crazy questions for you. I mean, that was good, right?
Cool.
That's a good overview of everything, Ryan Dossey, and I'm glad that I was able to stay here and drink coffee this morning and allow you to drive all the way up.
Yeah, anytime. Load up all the gear.
Yeah, you guys feel free to pack everything into the car and come hang out at my house while I sit around and drink coffee.
No, I appreciate it, man. There's a few people I wanted to meet before I left, and you were one of them. So our PCS movers get here on the 16th. So
jeez,
10 days.
I didn't know you were out of here that fast.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that's exciting.
Dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
That's cool. Well, best of luck out in Pensacola.
Thanks,
and
man.
If you ever come visit, let me know.
Absolutely.
But thanks for coming up here and hanging out. And hope you guys got something out of this. Obviously, I don't want to leave without having him tell you where to follow him. So, Ryan, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best bet's just Instagram.
Okay.
If you search Ryan Dossey, I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah. There you go. So he's got a bigger Instagram than me. So
you got a bigger YouTube though.
Yeah, we're just taking over the world. So
15,000 people at a time.
There you go. Hey, but thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome.